Administrator at NASA's Office of Small Business Programs. Send greetings from our Associate Administrator, Mr. Dwight Daniel, who wishes he could be here but couldn't be here. And I'll be talking to you. How many of you in the audience are actually looking to do business with NASA have a business? Okay. Well, hopefully you'll find this presentation informative. Many of you probably wonder, what does the Office of Small Business Programs do? The Office of Small Business Programs, our purpose and our mission is to promote and integrate small businesses into NASA's prime and subcontractors that support the agency's science, space, and aeronautics missions. Now, when you look at that, why do you think that people want to do business with NASA? NASA's budget is around $24 billion a year. Of that budget, about 85% of it is spent through the contracting process. So most of NASA's budget, we contract out what we need to go ahead and do to help us support our missions. So if you're in the business community, NASA would probably be one of the business or agencies you want to do business with, because we do contract out most of our dollars through the contracting process. Now with that, about 18 to 19% of that dollars, of that 85%, gets awarded to small businesses through our prime contracts. In addition to that, the agency through our prime contractors award about an equivalent amount of dollars to small businesses through subcontracts. So in any given year, about 34 to 36% of NASA's budget gets obligated, or dollars obligated, to small businesses. So if you're a small business, NASA cherishes you. And one of the reasons we do this is when we looked at the statistics, most of the innovation in this country comes from small business community. Most of the jobs that are created within this country come from the small business community. So in order for NASA to achieve all these missions that you see on the wall, we need that small business community to help us, because they're the ones that are developing the technology. In addition to that, we find that the small businesses tend to be more adaptable. They can pivot a lot quicker and provide us support a lot easier than some of the large major prime contractors can do. So that's one of the reasons that we really look to the small business community to increase that industrial base. Plus, in addition to that, it gives us more competition and more ideas for us to go ahead and select from. Now, one of the things that we find that businesses that are most successful doing business with NASA are the ones that do their homework. Typically within NASA, if you talk to a research engineer and a scientist or anything, they don't really care if you're a large or small business. What they really care about, can you help them achieve whatever their mission is or technology that they want to develop? So they don't really care if you're a large or small business. So you coming into NASA as a small business or even a large business and saying you have this capability, that's fine, that's good. But you need to make that connection to them, how you can go ahead and provide them solutions and help them support whatever program or technical mission that they want to go ahead and do. Now, to give you an idea of how NASA is organized and structured, so this will help you as part of doing your business with NASA. NASA has basically 10 NASA centers, and they're categorized in 3 basic categories. One is research centers, and the first research center is NASA 90 Research Center in Hampton, Virginia. They were the first of the NASA centers. They primarily do aeronautical research, but they also do space exploration as well. Then we have NASA Ames Research Center in Moffett Field, California, in the Silicon Bay. They do a lot of IT research, also aeronautical research there, and some space research as well, and science research. Then we have NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. They have a lot of wind tunnels. They do a lot of propulsion, electrical systems there, and they have wind tunnels as well, and also a drop facility, a plumb brick facility there. And we have NASA Armstrong Flight Research Center at Edwards Air Force Base, and they're unique because they're the only remaining NASA center where we basically do any flight testing with any type of aircraft. So that's the sort of the little A within NASA. Then you have what most people are aware of are basically our space centers, and you have a NASA Johnson Space Flight Center in Houston, Texas, where they basically train the astronauts. It's the home of the astronauts. That's where we have International Space Station. We also have our major programs like the CLIPS program, Commercial Lunar Payload program, Commercial Crew, Commercial Launch programs out of there, and that's where Mission Control is. for NASA. Then you have our NASA Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, and do a lot of our propulsion systems. So they do our large rockets. So as you can see there, behind there is the SLS, the Space Launch System. That is a program that's managed out of NASA Marshall. Then we have NASA Kennedy Space Center, where we launch the vehicles from. And we have NASA Stennis is the fourth of the space centers, and they do basically rocket propulsion testing there at Stennis. And they're basically an hour out of New Orleans, Louisiana, is where Stennis is located. And the last group of centers we have what we call our science centers. We have NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenville, Maryland, outside of the Washington, D.C. area, and they mainly manage our Earth observing platforms and observatories like the James Webb Telescope, the Hubble Telescope, and soon to be the Nancy Roman Telescope out there. But they also do a lot of Earth observing satellites and systems. They're really big into the Earth sciences as well. And then we have another center, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and even though we call them a center, they're really a federally funded research and development center because the Caltech out of Pasadena, they manage that center for us. And they primarily do study the solar system. So you have the Mars rovers and all that they have there that they do. The Voyagers that have left the solar system, those are managed out of JPL. The reason I tell you this is a lot of times we have businesses coming in here and they say, okay, we can do this, and they try to go ahead and do business with all the NASA centers. And it becomes very, very difficult because you really need to focus in on maybe one or two centers to what you can go ahead and do business in, because you find that this is more successful. Because when you try to do it to everyone, you tend to spread yourself out too thin, and you really need to focus in it. Now, when we have these 10 NASA centers, what we've done to help you market to these 10 NASA centers, we have what we call small business specialists. And these are your initial points of contact when you want to do business with NASA. They know that particular NASA center. They know the culture of that center and who the key points of people are within that center. They will help you go ahead and set up meetings with these key people. We'll tell you what type of procurement opportunities are at their centers. So those are your points of contact that you want to go ahead and really focus in on. Now, one of the things that we see right now is a lot of people get very interested in technology, and we want to email this, we want to do this, and contact people that way. Where we find out the companies that tend to be more successful are the ones that develop personal relationships with their end users, with the technical requesters. So that's why we say you really need to talk to the small business specialists and start building those relationships. A lot of times people just go ahead and try to respond to solicitations out there. Well, it's very difficult for them to do because you don't really have a true understanding of what that particular person is trying to work on. You really can't write probably your best proposal to go ahead and fulfill that. Now, like I said, the end users tend not to look at, if you're large or small, what they're looking for solutions. I'll give you an example of, probably the best example I've ever come across in my career of a company that developed a solution for NASA what we were looking for. In the mid-90s, NASA was going through looking at a replacement for the space shuttle called the X-36 program. It was going to be flying out of Edwards Air Force Space Center that I worked at. And they knew that NASA, when it does any of its flight research programs, they run simulations where the test pilots will go ahead and run a simulation before they actually get in the aircraft and fly it, so they're more familiar. They know in these simulations that we ride, we try to depict the area that they're going to fly in. We had a company out of Ojai, California, geological mapping company, which studies the terrain and how they map out the terrain and all this. And they came to us and said, well, we have this capability. I said, well, you don't understand. We fly planes. And I said, no, you don't understand. We know you fly planes. We know you have this X-36 program. We know you're going to fly in the Montana, Wyoming area. We can write a flight simulation program that will depict the actual terrain that these pilots are going to fly in. But it was actually a problem that we were trying to work on. Because most of our simulations at that point in time were just sort of very generic type of backgrounds. And to give you an idea that we can do this, we've already done this with the Marines at Camp Pendleton, to where their tank commanders, before they go on the field, they actually go through a simulation of the territory that they're going to fly. So we actually worked in the contract. But that's where they came to us with the solution versus them coming in saying we have this capability in geological mapping, can you use this? If they would have come to that, we wouldn't have been successful because we said there's not really a match here. But they met that match for us in regards to that. Now, one of the things that I want to tell you on it, and just tell you about tools that we have out there to help you out. If you can all pull out your phones right now, I'm going to give you something, a tool. If you really want to do business with NASA, this is the primary tool you need. If you go to your Apple Store or your Android store, and you type in OSBP, which stands for Office of Small Business Programs, you'll come to this site, this app. Now, once you're on this app, why this is so successful, if you see those group of people there, a picture of those people, that is a small business specialist. Remember I told you those are the initial points of contact? So if you click on that, it'll give you a map of the U.S. and each of the NASA centers are. If you click on that map, it'll give you the small business specialist, the ombudsman, who the small business rep is for that center, and who the small business technical advisor is for that center. You can go ahead and email a small business specialist. You can call them off that website. Now, in addition to that, we will have a listing of our acquisition forecast, which these are the requirements we tend to go ahead and procure for this coming fiscal year and the following fiscal year. One of the other things that we have, which is unique that most federal agencies don't have, we have what we call an active contracts list. And what this active contracts list, these are NASA's reoccurring requirements. These are our requirements that come up every 5 years. They tend to be more support service type of requirements. So engineering contracts, or IT contracts, or facilities contracts, our administrative contracts, or finance contracts, all those types of contracts, they're identified on there. And what's good about that, you will have the name of the contractor who gets that contract, the description of the item, you have the period of performance, you have the dollar value of that contract. Now, how this is really helpful for you since these are reoccurring contracts, once you know that that contract's going to expire at a certain period of time, 2 years prior to that expiration date is when the agency typically starts the re-procurement process. So this will give you an opportunity time, if you're looking at doing that work, to start contacting NASA and expressing your interest in their requirements and meeting with the technical people in regards to that requirements. In addition to that, we give you that contract number. A lot of companies will take that contract number and they will submit a Freedom of Information Act request to obtain a copy of that contract and obtain a copy of that statement of work. So once you have that statement of work, you have a better idea of what NASA is going to be buying, because those requirements don't change that much. So it gives you a leg up. Instead of just waiting for that solicitation to hit with that statement of work, you have that in advance. So it helps you go ahead and prepare for that and find out if that's something you want to go ahead and market to. And again, start that dialogue with those NASA end users. So that's very helpful. In addition to this, on that app, it'll tell you about the different outreach events that we attend, the different small business specialists. So if you want to talk to them one-on-one, you can go ahead and do that. In addition to that, the small business specialists at their centers hold one-on-one counseling sessions with themselves. They hold joint counseling sessions with their prime contractors. So that's good to have. Now, in addition to that, the Office of Small Business Programs, we conduct a monthly learning service, which is the third Wednesday of each month from 1 to 2:30 Eastern each month. The next one is this coming Wednesday. And it's actually a new initiative the Small Business Administration is pushing out, Made in America Manufacturing Initiative, where this administration is trying to push more manufacturing in this country. And that's an area within NASA that we have a supply chain gap where we need to have more manufacturing to go ahead and support the mission. So if you have time next week at 1 to 2 Eastern, or 2:30 Eastern, you sit in on that and you'll get some more information in regards to that. Now, in addition to this, we also have different tools that are out there to help you. If you're an innovative firm out there, NASA has what we call an SBIR program out there, which will provide seed money for you to do a feasibility study, and then develop a prototype, and then the third phase of this is for you to develop hopefully a commercial product that you can sell to NASA or sell to the commercial marketplace. So those are different tools out there. I know I'm almost at the end of my presentation, so I want to leave some time for questions there. So I'll open it up for any questions that you may have.